and welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, we are going to review the 2004 movie The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane. It's not a great movie, and it's never really fun to review bad movies, but we do have a guest coming on later this episode, Sergeant Ken Johnson of the U.S. Army, who's going to be helping us break down not just the film, but also the militaristic aspects of the character and the weapons and stuff. It's going to be great. Ken Johnson is a great guy. He's an executive producer of this show with his own podcast called You Call Those Tactics, and we will be linking to his show within our show notes. So look forward to hearing from him later on this episode, as well as checking out his own show after you listen.
Yeah, Ken analyzes films a little bit differently than we do. We always kind of take a story approach to it, but his real world analysis is so fascinating to listen to, and I can't wait for you guys to experience that later on in this episode.
Before we get into our review, we're going to break down the comic book movie news from the past week, of which there was just one news item, and it was kind of lame, but we got the new trailer for the Zack Snyder's Justice League film that's going to be on HBO Max.
You shut your damn mouth.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic.
Quick reminder, guys, that this podcast now has a card game out called Dynamic Duel War that you can get by joining us on Patreon. On any one of our tiers, the lowest of which is only $2 a month, you can find information on how to get the game along with other bonus content. If you want to have fun simulating battles between Marvel and DC characters, check us out at patreon.com/dynamicduel.
And just a quick reminder, guys, to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by leaving a quick rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to us on, or by sharing us with your fellow DC and Marvel fans. And note that I said please. It's the magic word.
I thought the magic word was Shazam.
That's true. Shazam, leave us a rating or review. But with that out of the way,
quick to the no prize. So a no prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media that I personally draw for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question, coming off the news that Disney Plus is going to be making a Wakanda spin-off show with the director of Black Panther, Ryan Coogler, we asked, what would you like the Black Panther spin-off television series on Disney Plus to be about? Got a lot of great answers here. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to visit our website and record your answer there. We do have a list of honorable mentions as well as the no prize winner to break down.
Our first honorable mention goes to Zachary Hepburn, who said,
"Hey, Dynamic Duel, Zack Hepburn here, and I have to say I want to see a spin-off show about M'Baku. Make him become the man-ape, right? Have him maybe hunt down the great white gorilla, kill it, eat its flesh. Bathe in it."
Now, it sounds like you got cut off because our voicemails that you leave have a 20-second limit, but the idea is really good. M'Baku was one of my favorite characters to come out of the Black Panther film.
Yeah, he's just dying for further development. Considering that he was portrayed as the leader of the mountain tribe and he just seemed like a really strong dude, it would be cool to show that he actually does get powers. In the comic books, he did feast on the flesh of the rare white gorilla and he became man-ape. And it would be cool if he got those powers in his own spin-off show. I think it's a fantastic idea. Good answer, Zach. Our next honorable mention goes to Jeff Miles Jr., who said,
"Hey, John and Joe, it's Jeff. Here to answer the no prize question, what should the Black Panther show be about? I think it's very clear it should be about Shuri and T'Challa as younger teens and make more sense for the next movie."
Yeah, I think that's a great way to set up the next Black Panther film. If you explore Shuri and T'Challa's younger years, you might be able to provide some insight as to what's happening with T'Challa in Black Panther 2, and perhaps provide more foreshadowing as to why someone like Shuri might take up the Black Panther mantle, or someone else. Who knows? That answer is the best way to kind of explain T'Challa's absence from the upcoming sequel movie.
Yeah, we're going to kind of get a glimpse at T'Challa's childhood in the upcoming What If animated show, where he apparently becomes a version of Star-Lord.
I mean, it's set in an alternate universe, so who knows if that's what his childhood would really be like, but
yeah, it's just a glimpse. Our final honorable mention goes to Shane Habizin, who said,
"Hello, Johnny and Joe. I think the Black Panther spinoff would be about an introduction to the White Wolf. You know who he is, I think. You keep pronouncing my last name wrong. It's Habazin, not Habazine. God.
Hey, listen here, you little shit. Tell that to UFC fighter Ivana Habazine, because that's how she pronounces her name, and that was the only source we had on how to pronounce your last name. But that was hilarious. Thank you for your answer. It's a great answer. I think the White Wolf would make a really compelling Wakanda spin-off show. The White Wolf is the leader of the secret Wakandan police, the Hatu-Sereze. They kind of deal with Wakanda's international enemies covertly. They've actually been exiled from Wakanda by T'Challa, who didn't want to use that secret police anymore. But their leader, White Wolf, who is actually T'Challa's adoptive brother, he's still very loyal to Wakanda and still carries out what he believes to be Wakanda's best interests. It would be very much like a spy intrigue kind of television series that would deal with Wakanda's influence on the outside world, but not directly deal with the Black Panther character himself.
Yeah, and if by the time you got to like Black Panther 3, if people were still, kind of uneasy about T'Challa returning, you could use that show to set up White Wolf as the new Black Panther.
No, he's white.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Never mind. That's just a bad look.
Wow, Jonathan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a member of a white family whose plane had crashed into Wakanda by accident, and they kind of adopted him.
Oh, interesting.
His name is Hunter, the White Wolf.
My bad.
Thanks again for the answer, Shane Habzin.
Yeah, thanks for being a loyal listener, man, and putting up with us mispronouncing your name all the time.
Before we name the no prize winner, we want to thank everybody who reached out to us via dynamicduel.com and left us an answer, including John Starosky, Kevin Odilon, and Jacob Bell. There were no wrong answers for this particular question. They were all great. So thank you for sending those. But the winner of this week's no prize is Calvin Mims, who said,
"Hey guys, Calvin Mims here. Love the show. I would love a Game of Thrones-esque show where it's just Wakanda and Atlantis just feuding and battling out. I think it would be a great show, and I would love it."
I love the way he just gushed over his answer at the very end. It's a great answer. If you could do Game of Thrones with any Marvel property, it would be Black Panther and Wakanda.
Yeah, these feuding kingdoms and their political differences and stuff like that. It would be so great. Not only would you have great political drama, but you would get to see Namor the Submariner. And I think that's awesome. I always thought that the sequel was going to go down that route, and it still might. But I think in order to truly delve into all the different intricacies between that particular feud, I think it would have to be a television series.
Yeah, plus, what better way to introduce Namor? He can't do it in his own movie because there's no way that's going to live up to the Aquaman film.
Right. No. That's
exactly. You admitted it. Oh, shit.
No. I take that back. No, it would totally annihilate it.
No way.
Anyway, congrats again to Calvin Mims for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so on Valentine's Day, Zack Snyder dropped the latest trailer for the HBO Max film, Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I have to wonder how anyone is still a Marvel fan after this.
what?
Every trailer that Zack Snyder drops, we've said this before, is the best trailer that has ever existed in the history of existence.
You are way overboard here. It was a mediocre trailer at best.
What? Did
Yeah.
you watch the trailer?
I did.
How was
It
that
was fine.
not
It was fine.
a fantastic trailer?
It looked like it was 90% just alternate shots from the theatrical cut of Justice League.
Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, 95% of the shots in this trailer are not in the theatrical film.
Yeah, because they're just alternate shots. But a lot of the story is still there.
No, it's not. All right, let's break this damn thing down. So the first shot is actually from BVS, it looks like. It's Superman. He's dying. He just got stabbed in the heart by Doomsday. And he's letting out this death rattle. And you see it echoing across space. This is supposed to be the quote unquote bell that Lex Luthor is talking about with voiceover during this scene that the New Gods apparently hear, signaling that Superman is dead and Earth may be ripe for the taking. That sound makes it all the way to the shores of Themyscira. Maybe, it just might be good editing. And we see Queen Hippolyta watch as the temple that held the Mother Box just kind of crumbles into the ocean. We also see glimpses of the nightmare sequence again. So we're revisiting that world. And it's so cool to see Ben Affleck back in the Batman cowl in that nightmare suit. I just love him as Batman. I'm so happy he returned for this.
Well, the nightmare scene was your least favorite moment from BBS.
It was. It absolutely was. I'm really glad they're doing it again here, though, just to add more context. The more context you could add to that scene, I think the better that scene will get.
That's true.
Especially considering the fact that we're actually seeing Darkseid in this film. Before, when we saw the Omega symbol, we had no idea what that was. But here we actually see like that symbol being created by Steppenwolf. When he slams his hammer down into the ground, it creates like this outward moving explosion that forms like this Omega symbol along with this other like intricate pattern in the ground. It's really cool.
That wasn't Darkseid that did that?
No, that was Steppenwolf. Did you watch the fucking trailer?
I did. I was kind of bored.
Oh my gosh. We see Diana exploring some like underground catacombs of like a Greek temple that shows an image of Darkseid, and then we cut to Apocalypse where we see fucking Darkseid, and he looks so cool.
Yeah, that was cool to know that we actually will visit Apocalypse within this movie.
We get to see Darkseid with his eyes glowing like a badass, way cooler than Thanos. Holy shit, get the fuck out of here. We also get to see Desaad. We get to see Granny Goodness. She looks awesome. And we also get to see, in a really important scene, I think, Steppenwolf bowing down to Darkseid. Or some people are saying that's a holographic image of Desaad. I'm not sure. But I think it kind of establishes that, hey, Steppenwolf is not the big bad here. It's actually Darkseid. Now, as Steppenwolf is like taking on a whole bunch of Amazons, Bruce Wayne starts talking about how he's going to build up this super team. And we get shots of the different members, including Aquaman, who's fighting Steppenwolf in a scene that looks way cooler than what we got in the theatrical cut. We see Cyborg. I think it's Nightmare Cyborg, but he has like this huge machine Gatling cannon coming off of his shoulder, like War Machine style.
What a ripoff.
Hey, we did it better. I don't know what to say.
That is not better. That's not better. What are you talking
way
about
better? Get out of here.
You get out of here.
And really, we just get to see the team like in various action shots forming as they're talking about Superman, about bringing him back and waving his, red cape in front of the bull that is Steppenwolf.
What kind of metaphor was that?
That was Alfred's metaphor. Did you watch the fucking trailer?
I kind of tuned out a few times.
Oh my gosh. We get to see Henry Cavill in his black suit, and it is so refreshing to see him without the CGI mouth in this film.
Oh, yes. Oh my god, he looks so much better without CGI face. Yeah. I think I'm most excited to see his Superman within this movie, how it should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel like Zack Snyder's series of DC films is kind of like a Superman trilogy, and I think this will sort of culminate his arc in a way. We get to see Cyborg flying and Steppenwolf taking on the Nightcrawler. And we also see like the Flash running through what I imagine is like maybe the Speed Force just towards this giant, massive blue explosion. It looks really cool and just really cosmic. I can't wait to see like his nightmare suit. I think it's going to be the one that Bruce Wayne had a premonition of in BVS. We hear Wonder Woman talking about the Age of Heroes, and we get a glimpse of that, seeing the first matchup against Darkseid when he first invades Earth.
Yeah, we've already seen that.
Yeah, we got like the bare bones of that fight. We're going to see a lot more of it, I think. But this all leads up to the end of the trailer where we go back to the Nightmare world and we get to see Ben Affleck's Batman interact with Jared Leto's Joker in their first like speaking interaction. It's amazing. And everyone's flipping out about the Joker's opening line, "We live in a society," which of course is a pretty popular meme. And already in this scene, Jared Leto's performance as the Joker, way better than what he did in Suicide Squad.
I don't like his look in this.
Oh my gosh.
I think he looked better in black and white than he does in color.
Why?
I don't know, because like the red mouth makeup thing looked kind of weird.
It looks really sinister and evil, like he just fed on something that's blood. If you don't like it in color, just watch the movie in black and white. You'll be fine.
Well, maybe I will.
The film, of course, comes out on HBO Max March 18th in the US. Before the release of the film, we're supposed to get one more trailer, but honestly, I'm totally sold with this. Like, just give me the movie already.
I think the time has come for my semi-annual reminder to you to check your expectations. Okay? This movie is likely not going to be everything you ever hoped and dreamed it would be.
Dude, this is like getting an all-new Justice League film. Like, more than half of it is new. There's supposed to be a new ending. It's going to be amazing.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself once again.
Oh my, what? No. Fuck you. They teased so many great scenes in this film with this trailer. I'm so excited. And that brings us to our question of the week. What was your favorite moment of the recent trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message can be up to 20 seconds. And don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
Be sure to record your answer before February 20th, when we record our next episode.
But that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, where we review the 2004 film, The Punisher, and we'll bring on our guest, U.S. Army Sergeant Ken Johnson, to help us do that. Okay, The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane, directed by Jonathan Hensley, came out in 2004. Jonathan and I, we were both 18, seniors in high school, and around that time, we were both strongly considering joining the Army, as we were heavily courted by our local recruiter. And that's the extent of our military experience. That's all of it. Thinking about joining the military. But joining us today is a man with actual military experience, currently serving in the U.S. Army, providing analysis and assessment. He's a film geek who could literally murder your ass. Please welcome the host of the podcast, You Call Those Tactics, Army Sergeant Ken Johnson.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I probably could actually and literally murder you, not just figuratively.
I know. I don't make any qualms regarding how much of a badass military guys are. One of my biggest regrets about not joining is that I feel like if I did join, I would be just so much cooler than I currently am. But one question that we ask all of our guests on the show is, do you prefer Marvel or DC?
Oh, it's DC all the way. Obviously, it's the greatest of all.
Yes.
Which, Joseph, it's all on you. It's really your fault for not swinging me to the dark side.
I'll keep trying.
So I grew up a DC nerd. My very first film watching was Superman, and from that point on, it was all over. Then going into Batman, and I think it's probably the fact that in the early 90s, what did Marvel really have to show for it with the shitty Captain America, the terrible Fantastic Four, and the really, really bad Punisher, which thankfully the movie we're going to talk about today kind of gives a little bit of credence, but whatever. But realistically, since about 2008 with the advent of Iron Man, I do enjoy watching the Marvel films. I love that they were as grounded as they were, and I honestly credit Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau 100% with bringing in all forms of comic book fans, not just the Marvelites. Mm-hmm. But I do love me some Zack Snyder because it should be dark and darker. I feel like that's the way that the people now are looking at. It's just the feeling that people have now in the world, and that he's trying to bring that into it. Now, sometimes do I really wish that we'd have a little bit more Christopher Reeve over Henry Cavill? Yes, but I feel like it's just an evolution of the character.
Yeah. I mean, like, post 9/11, these are pretty dark times. Like, it's not just in comic books where buildings are falling, so it kind of makes sense that the zeitgeist of storytelling and the tone of those stories would be a little bit darker.
Films usually reflect the times that they're made in, so I totally agree with that. Ken, you're an executive producer of this show, but you also have your own podcast called You Call Those Tactics. Please tell us what that show is about and what you do there.
My podcast really kind of spurned out of the fact of it doesn't matter what type of person you are, what kind of work environment you're in, there's going to be a movie about that work environment. The IT guys will watch things like Hackers and go, there's no way. Or the food service dudes are looking at waiting going, yeah, that's pretty true. But for military folks, it's worse because military grade, military-esque human beings, as they're seen by the public, are way out of proportion with what real military life is like. So, Joseph, you said that, you would be so much cooler had you joined the Army. Look, I'll be honest with you. Most of the Army life and military life is a lot like, yes, you can join the Army and learn how to sweep a motor pool, hate life, dig ditches, clean latrines, and then you're walking to the shower in Iraq and you get shot dead. That's pretty much how the Army is. It's glimmers of awesomeness met with the mundaneness of, oh my God, why didn't I join the Air Force? That's pretty much the Army life. So what I did was I took those feelings and really the catalyst of watching military movies with my wife and friends going, yeah, that wouldn't happen. Yeah, that wouldn't happen. Don't even get me started on the Hurt Locker. Took those feelings and then I applied them to military films. So most of the time it's just me. I'll take a movie and then break down the pros, the cons, the accuracies, the inaccuracies. Most of the time it's more the inaccuracies and just violently shit all over them. But I also will bring on people I've deployed with, friends, even had my father on once, which was a terrible episode. Everyone should go listen to it. But if you want to see me, who typically I have no issue with talking amongst anybody, but just the complete awkwardness of listening to my dad talk about boobs, it was great. But that's what the podcast is. And I've actually started branching out with this last week. I am taking real life battles and then breaking those down for the tactics that would have decided it in a different way. And really the reason I do that is because I'm a huge history nerd. And with what my job is, I can actually take these historical events and break them down in a way that people understand, okay, Custer's Last Stand could have gone a very different way, but the reason why it went the way it did was really the hubris of the man. And I think that people find that insightful, and I find it more rewarding sometimes than the shit films I have to review.
That sounds awesome. You downplay military life, and I'm sure it's very different from what all of us expect. But I gotta say, we just appreciate you and everyone else in the military. The work you guys do is for all of us, and yeah, we can't extend our appreciation enough towards you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you guys. I can honestly say my last tour in Germany, I was listening to you guys weekly. So you guys are reaching out and touching people all around the world, and a lot of us that like that little piece of home, even if it is, Marvel shitting on DC or DC emerging triumphantly. That's the kind of stuff that we appreciate.
Thank you.
I love that you like DC more.
I appreciate that.
Are you at least a fan of the Punisher, though?
Oh, of course. I mean, if we're gonna rate superheroes that are near and dear to my heart on the Marvel side, Punisher is definitely top 5.
Nice. Good. Well, Jonathan and I are very grateful to have you on as the guest for this episode because the Punisher has a military background. He's a guy who uses his former military training as a means to enact punishment on criminals. And Jonathan and I can't really speak to that, seeing as we're really a couple of vaginas who know nothing about guns or the military. So please be gentle with us. But to that end, we thought it would be great to get your thoughts on this film as both a member of the military and as a cinephile. Because let's face it, we had to make this episode interesting somehow. It's not a great movie.
Yeah, I appreciate that you guys self-select yourselves as vaginas and I didn't have to say it.
It's been a while since I've seen this film. I forgot just how generic it is. Like, I remember liking it when I first saw it in theaters, but man, as a Punisher film, it's kind of boring.
It was a little heartbreaking for me seeing the cast again. Mm-hmm. Like you, I remember seeing this when I was in high school. I was a junior when this came out, and I was already way into guns and the whole idea of vengeance is a feeling, punishment is a true fact, and a natural selection, so it was incredible. So I watched this film just like, rah, yeah, that was awesome! But then I watched it like 2 times last week, and I was like, oh God, how did you get Rebecca Romaine to be so plain?
Yeah, well, she's not covered in blue paint is the thing,
Or naked.
Yeah, and naked. Yeah, the talent behind and in front of the film is actually pretty commendable. Director Jonathan Hensley, he was a prolific screenwriter in Hollywood. He wrote the scripts for movies like The Rock, Gone in 60 Seconds, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Armageddon, some pretty good action films. And this movie doesn't really come close to any of those, which is disappointing because I'm a big fan of Thomas Jane and John Travolta. I think they're both great actors. But
did Jonathan Hensley write this film as well?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he wrote and directed it.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, and the story turned out just so generic and cheesy at some points, and frankly, lacking in decent action. And that was my main takeaway from the film when I first saw it in theaters. There was like maybe 1.5 gunfights in this entire film, because you had the Castle Family Massacre where he shot the propane tank. There was the Harry Heck fight where Punisher basically crashes his car and then uses a ballistic knife. And then there was the final club shootout, which that was pretty damn good. I wanted more of that from my Punisher movie ultimately. As a military man, Ken, how would you rate the action in this movie? Like, how accurate was it in terms of the weapons used, and how would you assess the tactics that Frank Castle employed?
0 out of 0. So, as the reigning military correspondent for your guys' podcast, I'll go ahead and weigh in on some, I'll say, inaccuracies. So, the point's well made. Like, I really enjoyed the film from a aspect that looked and had a lot of the character development, like a Garth Ennis run of the Punisher, but then neutered everything great about it, and then just kept the shitty characters.
Yes.
As far as the weapons and the tactics, so I am a huge gun nut, definitely. I own pretty much everything that he used in here, with the exception of the compound bow, and I can tell you that he used them all wrong. And I don't know how much we're going to go into the plot, but I'll say Frank Castle in the comics was a Vietnam vet, a Marine Force Recon.
Yes.
So very much into that level of brutality, which brings the character to where he is now. Because I can tell you that the way guys were trained in Vietnam versus how we are trained now, completely different.
Really?
For very good reasons. Because the way we fight now is more with an eye towards how the world sees us, especially because in the age of social media and media coverage, anything and everything that anybody in a uniform does can and will be held against us. So we have to look at things from a very technical aspect.
Interesting.
So in this movie, there's a ton of inaccuracies already brought up to it, and I have notes and notes and notes, and that's because I'm that type of person. But I'll just go ahead and start with how Dave kind of pulled up a dossier on Frank Castle, which I'm trying to figure out how he did that. But okay, we'll suspend belief that the guy playing Counter-Strike could, hack into DOD, and we'll move on. The fact that his military training, they said he was part of 12th Special Forces Group. Now, I'll give a little bit of background on this. So the 12th Special Forces Group was the original Green Berets.
Oh, really?
And it would make sense that he would have that type of training. The problem is the timelines don't match up because the 12th Special Forces Group was actually deactivated in 93, right after the first Desert Storm. Now, they kind of leave it ambiguous based on the photos, but based on the timeline of the film and the way it looks is like at present in 2004, it would probably make more sense that he was involved in Afghanistan, which means he definitely wouldn't have been part of 12th Special Forces Group. His secondary being in part of a CTU, which they call the Counterterrorism Unit.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist because everybody is part of the Counterterrorism Unit. In the fact that we're the military. Now, there are special groups that work different missions, and a lot of, I think, the pieces that they used for this film, in that the training and tactics that Frank uses probably would have laid into a lot of the special forces, joint special forces units that currently operate today. The problem is that in the film, all of it's wrong. It's just all wrong. The employment of weapons, the weapon systems that were used, the type of explosives, but most of that I feel like is really the nuance of the time. Because early 2000s movies, everything exploded with the force of a neutron bomb, even a hand grenade. So I really can't beat up on him too much for that. However, the perfect example is when he's fighting the Russian, which hurt my heart because the Russian's probably my favorite villain in Punisher comics.
He's great.
Especially after he's reanimated and becomes
with the
voluptuous.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was crazy.
It hurt my heart. But yeah, him throwing a grenade out of his bathroom and then to have it hit back in with a crowbar like a baseball. It just, none of that works. No self-respecting special forces guy would do that, especially because they're augmenting the explosion. It would kill him regardless, just based on the concussion.
Would the bathtub actually have saved his life?
Much like the refrigerator in Indiana Jones 4, yes and no. So based on the construction of the bathtub, if it was old cast iron, which is what they're probably going with, a la like Lethal Weapon 2, It could absorb some of the concussion. The problem is he didn't have anything over top of him, and the way that the grenade landed, it would have blown the bathtub and everything out of the wall, and then him with it. So no, to suffice it to say.
Wow.
Yeah. So to go back to your original question of the three major action scenes. So yes, the Castle Family Massacre with, all the henchmen that look like they were extras out of the Matrix film. The employment of the weapons by the castle guys. So they both used Remington shotguns, side by side 12 gauge shotguns. So 2 rounds apiece. At least I will say that they did a pretty good job on ammo count. So they didn't fall into the movie trope of unlimited ammunition. But
okay, I never pay attention to that, so that's interesting.
It's another reason why I can't watch movies with anybody but myself and a few choice friends, because that's all we do. And there's a whiteboard involved and how many rounds are actually in it. You can't enjoy a film. It's just the way it is. You have to rip it apart and then maybe pull the slight happiness out of it. But yeah, so the systems that they used worked. The problems were the amount of ammunition that they were using and how they were using it. So blowing up the propane tank, that doesn't happen. You can't blow up a propane tank by shooting it if Mythbusters proves anything. Because
I remember that episode. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was cool. It looked good. But the rest of the weapon systems used, it's pretty much normal fare. So the bad guys had Uzis and MAC-10s and Scorpions, all 9mm. The problem is that nobody seems to have any recoil ever. The one thing I will point out is when Roy Schneider, who had his worst cameo ever because he's a pretty great actor and he was relegated to about 3 minutes of screen time,
right,
was discussing his Colt 1911s that he bored out the barrel and added compensators. So I'll just go ahead and go through what those two things mean. One, it's just to make the guns look cool. And that's pretty much it. So when you bore out a barrel, what he's talking about is, so inside every barrel, and if you've watched any CSI or any kind of show like that, they talk about what the marks left on the bullet look like to match a gun with a bullet. So boring that out is actually effectively taking all of those grooves out of the barrel. The problem is then that means that you can't hit anything because those grooves are what gives you your gun accuracy and or it won't cycle correctly. So when you say something like, oh, I bored out the barrels, so basically what you said is you took 2 perfectly good 1911 Colts, the gun of World War II that so many people love, and you made it useless.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
The grooves make the bullet spin as it comes out of the barrel, correct? And that
Correct.
makes the bullet fly more accurately, right?
Yeah. So it's called rifling. It's what turned a musket into a rifle. And what made, people be able to hit something past 10 feet versus 100 feet. And that's the reason.
Interesting.
And then the compensators are really just called muzzle brakes. And what happens is it opens up the end of the barrel so that the gases come out the sides so there's less recoil. That is a good thing. The problem is that the Colt 1911 depends on a lot of that gas to make it function correctly. So if you are pulling back the recoil by removing the gases from cycling the weapon, it can cause it to jam or not function correctly. So yeah, not great. Again, makes it look cool, but definitely not useful.
And Frank was really impressed by the modifications. That's funny.
It hurt my face, just all over my face. It hurt. I cried softly into the night because of that. Like I said, other than that, the weapons that he employed were very much standard fare. Really, he just used an M4 carbine, which was the standard rifle that the military uses, a composite bow, which, other than Rambo, has no real effect in a tactical situation because we use suppressors. We're big kids, and that's how we go and do things silently. Because here's the thing with a bow and arrow, you don't just die once you're hit with an arrow, even if it goes through your neck. You don't just die. So what you're wanting to do is actually kill these people and make sure that they don't do anything. So shooting them in the throat with an arrow is really just going to cause them to scream. Gurgly, but walk around with an arrow sticking out of your neck, which to me kind of ruins your surprise.
Somebody shooting arrows around here.
Yes.
I have to admit, when I saw him using the bow, in the final scene, I was like, oh, he's so smart. It's so silent, and he's just taking those guys down. I had no idea that that's a bad idea.
Yeah, we don't think about these things.
Right. Well, the way I look at it is just like the Baron of Ibelin from Kingdom of Heaven discussing how he fought for 3 days with an arrow through his testicle. That's really all you need to know about arrows. There's very, very few times that you'll have an instant kill. Even if you shoot somebody through the heart, it's not 100% likely it's going to kill them instantly. So yeah. For the rest of the battle, a lot of the problems kind of lay in his tactics used with his explosives, so his anti-personnel mines and his claymores.
Yeah, he uses those a lot.
The problem with anti-personnel mines is the problem that runs throughout all of movies, in the fact that people think it's a huge explosion that kills people, like personnel. No, it's the fragmentation that kills people. So claymores don't explode gigantic balls of flame. They explode, but then they push pieces of metal about the size of a shark tooth about 300 feet, going very fast, and they're very hot. That's how people die. So in the size room that all the goons are standing in, everybody would have been dead. Just everybody.
Really?
There wouldn't have been much of a cool gunfight if one of those had gone off in such a small, condensed place.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I watched it this time, I kind of thought it was very foolish of him to be going into a gunfight with pockets full of explosives. If he got shot in one of those explosives, like, he would have been dead, right?
It depends. So most explosives are actually inert until you cause it to explode, so detonate it. And detonators really are a catalyst. So all explosives work on a chemical basis. Like when you start a fire using gas, you have to introduce heat or an ignition source to that gas in order for it to explode. That's what an explosive does. So the AP mines, what they use is the tripwire, which will actually pull the detonator and actually have it sit inside the blasting cap, which is what causes the explosion. And they actually prove this. You can shoot C4 all day long, but you actually have to incorporate a blasting cap and a detonator for it to explode.
Well, that just ruins the movie Rush Hour for me.
Exactly. I mean, they do it for a reason, which you already said. If I'm carrying around a explosive on my person, I don't want it going off if somebody nudges it or shoots at me and it goes off. I want to be the one that causes it to explode.
Yeah. What did you think about Castle's primary strategy in this movie to get revenge is not storming the castle, as it were. It's through blackmail. And that was one of the things that I hated about this movie. Like, Hensley, he seemed to want to try to make this revenge plot, like, very epic and very cunning, like a Count of Monte Cristo story where the hero dismantles his enemy from the shadows. But to me, the Punisher has always been more direct, more of a force of nature. Not without guile and cunning, but, you know, he knows there are more efficient ways to get the job done than lugging around this fake fire hydrant all day, you know? Typically in the comics, he vets his enemy, he strategizes, he executes, and on to the next target. But here, you know, he's hiding earrings in beds, and he's pretending to blackmail closeted homosexuals. There was just too much petty scheming on the Punisher's end. Like, why would he go through all that trouble with a blackmail scheme with so many variables, so many things out of his control, so much that could go wrong, when he could have just, like, reconned and stormed Howard Saint's mansion?
So there are two pieces to this. One, I completely agree with you. It is completely outside of the Punisher as a character. The Punisher himself will do all that he needs to do to set the conditions so that he is able to be successful, but he's not going to use what I'll call psychological operations on people. Mm-hmm. When you start introducing things like in this film, utilizing his target's vanity and really self-destructive nature against him, those are variables that even the best laid plan is going to fail. And that's the thing that did not happen in this film. There is no such thing as the perfect plan. Everything sucks as soon as something happens. World War II, General Patton said, no plan survives first contact. None. So what do? You go right up the middle. And then, you know, the Nazis and the Soviets used to say, there's no real point in memorizing American doctrine because we don't even follow it. So that's the key to Frank Castle. He's going to set his conditions by doing all of his reconnaissance, all of his intelligence operations, using everything at his disposal to set it so that when he does attack, he's not running into a heavily fortified area that he's not going to be able to walk out of. But what I do enjoy in the comics versus this is that even his plans will have a monkey wrench thrown into it. In that there's always something that pushes back against them that he has no control over or he's got to overcome. In this film, there was never really that worry. Other than the Russian, and even that was a 2-minute fight, which ended with him throwing him down the stairs. So it required that Deus Ex Machina of, I'm going to hit him with hot scalding cornflakes and then Goldberg spear him downstairs, breaking his neck. So he doesn't even get that kill count, which, that's the most important thing in a Punisher movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the greatest things about reading the Punisher comics, and particularly in Garth Ennis' stories, is seeing the Punisher's ability to improvise when things do go wrong. And you're right, in this movie, nothing ever really went wrong regarding his plan. And that's unfortunate because that's something that you like to see in movies in general because it adds interest to the drama. And it's kind of what made this movie a little bit so generic.
From looking at 2021 to 2004, I definitely see why they did what they did. Because looking at, the first 3 years of the Afghan and into the Iraq conflict, there was also the interrogation issues that we're running into, how the CIA was interrogating people. So I saw that in the film. So that kind of was a wink and a nod and a ha ha ha, we see what you're doing and we're going to turn it on its head. So that instead of the Punisher being the Punisher, which is, I'm going to interrogate you, but then I'm going to kill you because I've gotten all the information I need unless I really, really need you. This is I'm going to poke you with a popsicle while searing my dinner, and then I'm going to let you go, and you are an integral part of my plan. That's really what I saw. So then, fast forward to John Barenthal's Marvel Netflix show. That is the brutality of the Punisher, but you also do see that same feeling of taking the events of the days, but having that wink and nod and, okay, well, he uses his badness for a good purpose, quote unquote, but we're going to actually throw nuance at you.
Yeah. Yeah, they address issues like gun control in the modern Netflix Punisher series and stuff like that. But yeah, I was pissed off when the Punisher ended up not killing Mickey because I feel like in the comics, that's what he would have done. He would have just torched the guy after he got the information he needed. I feel like that's what Ray Stevenson's Punisher would have done in Punisher Warzone for sure.
Oh, definitely. I wish there was an amalgamation, honestly, that Tom Jane had actually come back for Warzone, because I thought Jane was actually really good Punisher type, that they didn't have to go full Jason 6'8" and hulking. You don't need that as a Punisher. That he needs to be lithe and quick and built, but be able to be believable as a soldier that, not Captain America. He's just a normal guy that has a ton of training that has one really shitty day.
Yeah, I really liked Thomas Jane in this role. I do wish that he were given a better movie to star in, and we did get to see shades of that in the fan film called Dirty Laundry, which is a quasi-independently made sequel to this film. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's on YouTube. I do highly recommend it because it's a look at what Thomas Jane's Punisher could have been if given the right script and the right cinematography. But Thomas Jane, I think he had the look down. He definitely had the voice, the demeanor, to me at least, of what the Punisher would be like. Prior to this movie, he was always kind of like this scrawny guy, but he underwent some serious training for this role, both physical and with weapons. Do you know about the training that he went through?
So Tom Jane went through a very similar training as a lot of actors in that day. Because of insurance issues, what they do is they hire a military consultant and put them through like a 2-week boot camp. Basically enough training so that it looks believable, how they hold a gun, how they move with a gun. And that, I will say, Jane did a good job, especially as you look across his filmography. You could see that he was willing to learn, and he didn't have the pretty boy Matt Damon-esque Saving Private Ryan quality to him, where it wasn't, that's Matt Damon playing a soldier. It was, okay, this is Thomas Jane, and he became this character. And I feel like he did a good job. The military contractor, I did not get his name, but he's done a lot of great films. He was tied to World of Valor, and then a couple of other really kind of B-rated military films.
Interesting. What did you think about the film's decision to change Frank Castle from a Marine to an Army soldier? I thought he was in Delta Force, but you said that he was part of the 12th Division?
So they called him 12th Group, which is like the Green Berets. So the difference between the Green Berets and the Delta is training, and it's even smaller, a select group. Really, when you're talking about special operations folks, it's all about training and their job. Me as an Army guy, I am always happy to shit on crayon-eating Marines, but that's just because I'm Army. Honestly, I feel like the character could be any special operations soldier. It doesn't have to be a Marine. It works well in the comics because it ties very well to the camaraderie of that group. And that's something that the Marine Corps has over the Army, is that every Marine that graduates and becomes a Marine is a Marine forever. Army, it's a little bit more difficult because we're a larger force. We have camaraderie amongst ourselves, but a soldier from one division won't look at another soldier in another division and be automatically brothers, whereas the Marine Corps does. And I think that's the reason why in the comics it's worked so well for him to maintain that, why it worked so well in the Marvel series. But I don't really see it being a huge issue, say, in this film.
Now, I've always wondered something about the comics. In the comics, again, Frank was part of Force Recon, but he also went through the Army's airborne school and trained with the Navy's underwater demolition team, which I guess qualifies him as a Navy SEAL. And I was never quite sure how that worked. Like, is that plausible for a Marine to get both Army and Navy training?
Oh, definitely. So Army is the one that runs the airborne school. So everybody will go through the airborne training from the Army. You can go through Navy demolitions, but that does not make you a SEAL. You actually have to go through BUDS and become a SEAL, but Marines can do it. So it is definitely plausible, especially because, I mean, I've gone through Marine schools, I've gone through Air Force schools.
Oh, really?
I'm definitely not as cool as Frank Castle, nor will I ever be as cool as Frank Castle.
Oh, don't say that about yourself.
Yeah, no. The different forces, the different branches of the military have different jobs. The Marines kind of get a shit into the stick because they are owned by the Navy, so the Navy is always going to be their daddy. But their job is to be the amphibious assault and the first ones in. That's their whole gig, which is the thing that the Army loves to hold over the Marines, that the largest amphibious assault was actually conducted by the Army in that Normandy invasion.
Oh, really?
So the Marines aren't even the best at what they do. We still hold the title.
That's why they call them Marines.
Yep.
That never even registered with me until right now. Amphibious assault, Marines. Oh my God, I suck. What did you say Marine stands for again?
Oh, my ass riding in Navy equipment.
That's pretty good.
And I get a lot of hate mail, but that's okay.
That's all part of the rivalry.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on Space Force?
I wish I was part of them. However, the name is terrible. They could have gone with anybody but Guardians, because now all I think of is Destiny. And really, it's just an offshoot of the Air Force. I think there's a reason for them to be there, but until technology actually catches up, they're just going to be second fiddle to the Air Force.
I always think of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, or like, Ganthet from Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
Regarding Thomas Jane again, I do think the movie does a good job of believably portraying the character's journey from a family man to an alcoholic bent on revenge to a vigilante anti-hero. And despite it being an apparent suicide mission, he does learn in the end that good memories can save your life, and you can make new good memories, even if those new good memories will entail blowing the heads off of criminals. It wasn't much of an arc, but that being said, there wasn't much of an arc for any of the characters within this movie, including Howard Saint, who was played by John Travolta.
I feel like the movie spent its entire casting budget on John Travolta and Roy Schneider. I was about to say Rob Schneider. Yeah.
You can do it.
Just those two actors alone. Because everyone else is almost, a no-name actor, maybe except for Rebecca Romaine.
Well, I also thought Will Patton did a really good job in this movie.
Yeah.
He was actually my favorite actor within this film. I think he gave a really great, nuanced performance. He was basically Howard Saint's head lackey and lawyer in the film. But yeah, the movie did get some pretty good grabs as far as casting goes. And John Travolta always plays a great villain, although I have seen him do it better in other films. I think he was certainly more interesting in films like Face Off or Broken Arrow or...
Look Who's Talking 3.
There you go.
The only unique thing about Howard Saint in this movie was that I guess he was a creature of habit, which Frank is able to use against him, and he was also very possessive of his wife Livia, but that was a little bit weird. Apparently he was a money launderer for a pair of Cuban drug criminals, but that whole element of the movie was essentially pointless. Like, the Cubans give him shit and they threaten his life because he's not taking care of Frank Castle, but all of a sudden they just stop. The whole element never really comes back into play in the movie. And you think it would have come into play later where like Frank maybe had to deal with the Cuban mob since he was responsible for their financial losses, but nothing.
Yeah, John Travolta's character basically says like, I've got more guns than you, go away. And then they do.
They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just leave now.
Yeah, at least he was upfront about it. I feel like John Travolta was very much a throwaway character. It was insert bad guy A, who's the head of the crime family here, which is sad because he can be a very good villain. And you saw some of it. I feel like the movie could have been so much more, starting street level. Just starting from the fact that Frank Castle coming to the cops like as soon as he comes back. That was a terrible idea and it made no sense.
Right in front of the press.
I mean, he could have started off knocking off the Cubans, moving his way up the chain, and Howard Saint being that last great kill. But then, the ending, instead of him, looking down at his chest, which totally made sense for the Punisher, sniping the Cuban brothers. That would have been a great ending of the film. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a lot of like weird storylines that felt like they were probably like third or fourth editions of the draft.
Yeah, a lot of dangling threads in this movie. I will say that the extended edition of the film does pick some of those up, not in regards to the Cubans, but in regards to his partner Jimmy Weeks. And there's actually a pretty dark scene where he gets his partner to kill himself. But that wasn't included in the theatrical cut, which is unfortunate.
The special edition had an alternate opening as well, right? And it was all completely illustrated by Tim Bradstreet.
Yeah, who did the Punisher covers at the time. It wasn't particularly well done animation. It looked like a bunch of paper dolls moving across the screen. So I wasn't impressed by that at all. But it was a scene where you see the Punisher in Afghanistan, I think, and he saved his entire unit that was captured on his own. So it was an interesting story, but it was almost hard to enjoy because the animation was so lacking.
I think they did that because that was originally in the script, but they didn't have the budget for it.
Right.
Like the studio kept pulling funding for this film, so it was made on a tiny, tiny budget. I don't know the exact number, but it was small.
And it only had like a 50-day shooting schedule, I think, which is insane. But it's disappointing to have this adaptation from a Garth Ennis storyline and not have an interesting villain, because one of the things that Garth Ennis does best is present these total wackos for Frank Castle to go up against. I think they did kind of a piss poor job of adapting Garth Ennis's source material, especially when it came to Frank Castle's neighbors, Joan the Mouse, Specker Dave, and Mr. Bumpo. I felt like they were so unnecessary in this film, and they really give the movie this weird tonal shift. Like, there are certain ways to come at the character of Frank Castle. You have your straightforward, gritty crime stories like the 90s Punisher Warzone comics. You have your deeply personal character studies like Punisher War Journal. And then you have like the over-the-top Garth Ennis Marvel Knights book. The Punisher Netflix series and the Punisher Warzone film, to their credit, they picked a tone and they stuck with it. They knew what they were trying to be. But this 2004 Punisher film, it took multiple approaches from silly to somber to harrowing. It makes the film completely off balance.
And then occasionally you get like a musical interlude.
Oh my God, the Harry Heck scene?
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
Okay, you guys might shit on that, but that's going to be played at my funeral. All right? I love that song. That and Broken are two that are still on my playlist at this time. Of the film, the score I thought was actually really good because you can still, like, it'll take you back to that Punisher theme from the opening credits to, like, okay, that's the Punisher. Or, Broken because it was played so many times on MTV and VH1 back in the day.
Yeah, I did buy the soundtrack to this film. I remember enjoying it. It's a little bit dated now, but I have to say that I didn't really like the score too much. It kind of took me out of the film because of how brassy and pompous it was, whereas I was hoping it would be a little bit more gritty and badass, something more like the Dark Knight score or something like that.
Yeah, usually when I think of the Punisher, I don't think of like a brass section. I think of like an electric guitar kind of thing, I can appreciate this score. I do think that it was not always appropriate for the Punisher in some areas, especially like right before the end fight. I really wanted something hardcore right there. And it was just like this almost like triumphant kind of Superman-esque brass riff that we got.
Yeah, he's like, my actions are not vengeance, they're punishment. Do-do-do-do. Like, it was a very 90s type musical score, I think. And that's, like, out of all the different approaches that the film took, it baffles me that it appears that their primary approach was to make a shitty 90s action movie. From my understanding, it was Hensley's intent to make a throwback to old school revenge movies of the 70s, like Get Carter or Death Wish, and also toss in these neo-Western elements from Sam Peckinpah films like The Wild Bunch. But to me, this movie was the superhero equivalent of like a Steven Seagal flick, except with less action.
Yeah, all this movie was missing was puns. There were no really good puns.
Well, John Travolta did say that, his wife took the train. There was that.
There was that. Yeah, she took the train and he's wrapped up in something.
Yeah, that was a sinister little bit there that I wish they would have, gone further with that aspect of the character, honestly, because I thought it was mildly amusing. Let's go ahead and break down the story of this movie. So from the opening credits, I really thought they did a pretty good job with the opening credits. The style of that animation that they did was really well done. I thought it did a good job of setting the tone of what a really awesome Punisher movie would be like. I don't think that the movie actually quite lived up to the animation style of these credits.
It was really cool, especially how like the white blood dripping down from the bullet holes formed the Punisher skull. I remember seeing that in the theaters for the first time and just going, oh man, this movie's going to be awesome.
I really like the Punisher skull insignia design for this movie. I think it's the best that the skull has ever looked. It just looks so gritty and a little bit organic, but really sinister.
It does have that tone of don't screw with me. I didn't like the background they gave it in this film. I don't think they should have done that. I think it should have just been, this is a really awesome, cool symbol, and he finds it and uses it. The backstory they gave it was terrible.
Regarding the kid?
Like his kid buying it as a t-shirt for him.
Yeah.
He's like, it looks really intense. Have this shirt, Dad.
It wards off evil spirits.
Does it?
I mean, in a way, it does with bullets.
Outside of the context, how would you guys feel if your kid bought you this like freaky looking t-shirt like that?
I'll neither confirm nor deny that's already happened. And when my kids did it, I just immediately started looking around for exits. And then also they were not allowed to go on any carousels or rides or anything. They both went into a bunker.
No, my daughters already know, the Punisher symbol. They know it's Marvel. They would never do it.
So after the opening credits, we get this weapons deal gone bad, where the character of Bobby Saint, who is the son of the main villain, he ends up dying in the Sting operation. I don't get why Punisher was all of a sudden like this thespian. It made no sense to me because, he's a Force Recon guy who ended up joining the FBI as an undercover agent. And I guess they just knew that he could do this German accent, or they asked him to, or something like that. It was so bizarre.
Dude, don't you know that Frank Castle was in like theater club in high school?
Yeah, right.
Totally. Now, I wish, honestly, that they had swapped sons, because I'd have loved the douchebag kid to have been blown away in this one, and not the nice kid. The fact that they left that greasy slime ball of a son around is just terrible karmatic events.
There was something about that actor that it aggravated me every time he was on the fucking screen. I just wanted the Punisher to just fucking kill him already. And he did have a great death scene, though, I have to say. It was pretty good, holding up the mine.
It was definitely the most Punisher of the deaths for his nemesis.
Yeah. So after that scene, Frank goes home and he tells his son, that they're moving to London, that he's not going to work undercover anymore, and he's getting a desk job. And they go to a family reunion in Puerto Rico. But meanwhile, the Saints, they learn everything about Frank. And the wife, Livia, tells Quentin Glass that she wants the whole family murdered. And that's a little extreme. That was really fucked up. The whole family massacre scene, when I saw it in 2004, it didn't really register with me how insanely horrific that was until I saw it again a few weeks ago. That whole thing is just, it's
there
really
were a ton
scary.
of kids there.
Yeah. A lot of kids died. A lot of grandparents died. And I'm surprised they went that route. I don't think they would have done that in today's climate. I don't think.
Oh, yeah, definitely not. And the guy trying to sail away on the boat which I think that was probably the only humorous part of that entire scene, is like, I'm going to get on a boat and try to sail away before the guy shoots me. But yeah, I feel like that was way over the top reaction, and I don't really know what that would stem from. Like, I understand grieving and having vengeance upon you, but to completely wipe an entire person's family off the map, that's, we'll say, an indicator of psychosis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was hard enough when it was Punisher's wife and 2 kids that died, but seeing his whole family wiped out was just, it was nuts. It was not easy to watch. But his son and wife get run over. They're killed, and Punisher is nearly killed as well. He's blown off the dock in an explosion, and he has a couple gunshots in him. But a local fisherman manages to rescue him and nurse him back to health.
It was like a witch doctor.
Yeah.
Who nursed him back to health. Which, like, a good thing it was a witch doctor, because if he wasn't there, is there any way Frank Castle could have survived all of those gunshots to the chest?
Not to mention he was swimming full of holes in what I could only assume would a passing by shark would find. And, you know, he winds up on a beach, and then the one witch doctor who just so happens to be in the area nurses him back to health after being perforated. I mean, I appreciate a good, you know, wow, that happened. But yeah, I'd say coincidence, I think not. I think the witch doctor had a hand in all of this. I'm just saying.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I actually would have loved if Frank was attacked by a shark in that scene, and then all of a sudden it turned out that Roy Schneider was still alive, and then he jumped in and then fucking killed the shark by shooting an explosive in its mouth. That would have been awesome.
Die, you son of a... Boom.
With his M1, it was glorious.
So Castle, he decides that he's going to get revenge. He says, God's going to sit this one out. One of the cheesiest lines ever. He goes and he finds a new apartment, gets new neighbors, and he kidnaps one of Howard Saint's lowest lackeys, Mickey. And he interrogates him and gets information all about Howard Saint and his dealings and his family. During his recon, Frank Castle learns that Quentin Glass is gay, and he uses that in addition to Livia Saint's routine of always going to the movies. He uses those elements to set it up to make it look like they're having an affair and drive Howard Saint jealous, since he knows that Howard Saint is insanely possessive of his wife.
See, that's something that kind of stuck out with me, too. Like, Mickey says, what he possesses most is his wife. Okay, well, then he lets her go and do her nails and by herself go to movies every single week. If he's that possessive and that jealous, do you not think that he would have at least 2 or 3 dudes there with her at all times?
You would think, but he must give her like a weekly allowance of free time to herself or something like that. It's so bizarre. That whole relationship was bizarre, especially the scene where like the family is murdered and then she like shows up in lingerie. It's like celebrating the death of Castle's family. It was weird.
Very strange performances, I think.
Laura Harring, though, she is a bottle of hottie hot sauce. That's what I gotta say.
The only person that could make Rebecca Romijn a little more bland is her.
Right.
Then we get to the part where Frank Castle, for some reason, rips up his tombstone and announces to the world that he's back, which makes no sense to me from a strategic standpoint because, you know, he could have used his seeming death as an advantage against his enemy. Idiot.
I'm not sure why he even had a tombstone, considering, like, they didn't have a body. Like, wouldn't there still be, like, an ongoing search? I don't know how long it takes before they just call it off and say, yeah, this guy's dead, we can't find him.
And only after 5 months. The Tampa Bay police do a bang-up job. Well, guys, 5 months have passed. We'll just go ahead and close this case.
Frank Castle attacks Howard Saint's money laundering scheme by throwing money out of the window and blowing up a shipment of money that was going to the Cubans. At the end of the throwing money out the window scene, there was this moment where Frank Castle went down and he killed 2 of the guys that were there during the family massacre. And it was so anticlimactic because I thought at this moment he was just going to go guns blazing towards these guys, but it turns into this like freaking quick draw Western style shootout. It was so lacking in energy and so dumb. It made no sense why any of them would do that. I guess they were just sporting men or something like that. It made no sense.
Well, they couldn't wait until, tomorrow morning at dusk, 5 paces away, and then turn. That there was no budget for that, so they decided, okay, well, we'll do this whole escape from LA. Hey guys, we'll play Moscow rules, and then quick draw. Yeah, no, it does not work. And he should have thrown an AP mine at them as he was kicking one in the face. That'd be a little bit more Frank Castle.
There you go.
Yeah, it was especially bizarre considering what you said about the Colts and how, the compensators and boring out the barrels would have made him insanely inaccurate in that shootout. So I feel like what would have really happened is he would have drawn both of his guns, dual wielding, and he would have shot and missed both of those guys and then just died.
Okay, I'll take this moment to go ahead and discount. Nobody dual wields. Literally nobody dual wields. Because if you really think about this, if you're trying to be accurate any further than like 2 feet, you have to aim. And there are not very many people that have chameleon eyes that can separate their eyes so that they can see both guns and firing. That doesn't happen. Never, no, not once. That's why John Wick doesn't do it.
Oh, that's right. He never does. I love those movies. I feel like a Punisher movie done in the style of John Wick would be absolute perfection.
Indeed.
Due to their loss of money, the Cubans visit Howard Saint, just for reasons, just to give him a threat and then not show up again. Frank starts his blackmail plan when he's visited by a country western songwriter / assassin named Harry Heck. Now, in the comics, Harry Heck only showed up for like a few panels. He was like this known western gunslinger who's famous for dodging a bullet, but Frank ended up mowing him down with an Uzi because, he was like, he dodged a bullet, he can't dodge 30. It was really quick and hilarious, but here they completely transformed the character. Now, you say the song is good. I don't hate the song. It's fine. But the fact that he shows up at this like diner and plays it for him, I felt so much secondhand awkwardness on behalf of everybody involved. Like, I think they tried to make it like cool and like menacing or something like that, but to me, I was just like dying from embarrassment.
I had the same reaction that Spacker Dave and Bimbo had. They were just kind of like giggling afterward. They're like, what the hell was that?
I also feel like we're jumping over the fact that Frank Castle was at this diner. Like, hey guys, let's all go to the diner where Rebecca Romaine's character works and we'll eat breakfast together. Yeah, that's not something that we would do. So the fact that he was even there bothered me. And then, of course, Harry Heck with his, I smoke a cigarette and put it in between my pinky and my ring finger so I can strum my guitar. That's country right there.
That was so weird. I didn't really love the subsequent gunfight either because I think it was over a little bit too quickly. I did like how Thomas Jane outfitted his car with like those sliding panels that would block the bullets for him. But he was such a piss poor driver after that. Like, he was fleeing in such a hurry, flips his car. It just was kind of not a great showing on behalf of the Punisher. I wanted him to pull out a gun, but he didn't even do that. He pulled out this ballistic knife. Now, in your experience, Ken, have you ever seen a ballistic knife?
I have, and yeah, nobody carries them because they're ballistic knives and guns work better. What bothered me probably most about this whole thing was the fact that we spent like a good 5 minutes of a montage of watching him outfit this car and getting it ready and revving the engine for it to disappear 2.5 minutes later because he flipped it trying not to hit a kid playing with a soccer ball. And then he gets up after killing Harry Heck and is like, I'll just take his car. And then that's it. That's the car he uses the rest of the film. It's like everyone's like, well, that Charger's on its, and there's a dead man right there. Oh, okay, we'll just go ahead and move right past this.
So dumb.
It really killed me that like all these assassins that Howard Saint sent after the Punisher knew where he was. They knew he was at the diner. They knew where he lived. Like, why didn't Howard Saint just send a firing squad? It made no sense. Thomas Jane going around, like, standing in front of the media and stealing his tombstone and going to diners, like, not hiding out, seemed like just bad decision-making.
Well, I was going to say, how did the Russian even know where Punisher lived to begin with? But yeah, if he's going to diners and whatnot, he's probably easy to follow.
Well, you guys also are missing the deleted scene where there's the guy flipping the sign, like a pizzeria. He's got the Punisher lives here. And then, that's where he's out, like everywhere he's at. Like, hey, guys, he's here. Don't worry about it. He's so badass. You can't kill him.
If I was Frank Castle, I'd have been like, Mickey, he turned on me.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did enjoy the Russian fight, though. I thought that was really well done. Kevin Nash, I think he's just a mountain of a man. And I think he looked like a good version of the Russian if, he didn't really act like the version from the comics. In the comics, the Russian is kind of a motor mouth. He just talks nonstop and he's like a huge fan of like superheroes and stuff like that. He's a hilarious character. And here, he wasn't hilarious in himself. The fight was kind of played for laughs a little bit. But I absolutely believed that he could wipe the floor with Thomas Jane. Just fucking huge.
I did enjoy the flattening of the Colt Python barrel with the weight that he just kind of pulls off. It's like, I'll just flatten this, and then the humorous of Tom Jane looking at the barrel, going, shit.
Yeah. He totally sold the humor, I think, of that scene. They did keep some elements from the comics of this fight, like when the Russian hit him with the toilet and when he was smashing his head into the refrigerator. I thought that was pretty good. And the Punisher even ended up killing the Russian using food. In the comics, he threw hot pizza in his face and then smothered him with Mr. Bumpo. I thought that would have been hilarious if they did that in this movie. But instead, he just pushed him down the stairs and he broke his neck. In this movie, John Panette played Mr. Bumpo. And he's a big guy, but I don't know if he's big enough to believably smother a guy as big as Kevin Nash.
Yeah, I forget that Ben Foster played Specker Dave. And Ben Foster's like a really decent actor.
He's quite the chameleon. It's hard to believe that this is the same guy that played Angel in X-Men 3. So after the Russian fight, Frank Castle is wounded, and the neighbors help him by stitching him up and hiding him in an elevator when Howard Saint's goons show up to see if the job was done. They end up interrogating Specker Dave, pulling out his piercings. In the comics, that scene was played for laughs, but in this movie, that was kind of hard to watch because Ben Foster and Will Patton played the scene so real. It's crazy.
I think what pissed me off is the fact that Dave is the one that gets all torn up, and at the end, Bimpo is like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, well, look what he did to him. He's what the hell? Nobody did anything to this guy. They're just like beating the shit out of this guy. Oh, you like that? You like that? You like that? You're gonna say something?" He's like, that's fine. Just keep going.
Yeah, right?
I wouldn't have been friends with that man.
No, not at all. Like Bumbo seriously couldn't like stand up and shove that guy. It's his friend getting tortured.
Yeah. Recuperated, Frank Castle kills one of the goons who stayed behind with a paper cutter, which I thought was a pretty cool kill. But then he completes his blackmail plan and gets Howard Saint to kill both Quentin and Livia. Despite the fact that it was kind of a dumb, implausible plan, the fact that it was carried out to fruition, I thought was pretty good. Just seeing the whole Howard Saint crime organization destroy itself from within. It was still satisfying in a way.
Yeah, I think just because of the over-the-top way that Howard Saint killed his best friend and his wife. Like, that was pretty brutal. That was gruesome. Like, these characters aren't sympathetic characters. They went off and killed entire families. But it's still pretty shocking to see how they died.
Yeah.
It really showed, like, how much thought he put into it. At this point in the film, you didn't really see that from Howard Saint's. Like, you just saw kind of like this businessman aspect of, I'm a money launderer and not much else. I mean, he's got the charisma of John Travolta, so there's a little bit of menace to him. But other than that, you didn't really see anything. Other than him shooting the dude in the leg in the very beginning, there really was no menace, like physical menace. And then for him to kill both of them in such a brutal way was kind of one of those, okay, so maybe this character could have been something more had more development occurred.
Yeah, for sure.
Howard Saint gets all of his goons and assassins together at a club, and he offers a cash reward for the Punisher. I don't quite know why he didn't do this from the beginning, but Punisher uses this opportunity to attack everybody at the club in the best action scene in this movie. I really enjoyed the gun action that happened up in that room when he switched from his rifle to his shotgun. I didn't think it was quite believable, though, that he got 2 point-blank shotgun rounds to his chest and was still fine.
Yeah, not so much. I can tell you, I've never been shot in the bulletproof vest, but I will say from experience on how that works, especially if it's a shotgun, he'd be dead. It had perforated right through. The first round probably would have been stopped slightly, but the impact itself would have put him out on commission, because just because the bullet stops doesn't mean all the force that comes with it stops.
Right, yeah.
Now I was kind of surprised how, everyone was aiming right for his bulletproof vest. That's clearly a bulletproof vest. I know you're supposed to aim for, center mass, but come on, aim somewhere else.
The guy who shot him with the shotgun, considering he was that close, why didn't he aim for the head?
Because they were well trained. You always aim for center mass, because if you miss, then, you miss high and you'll hit him in the shoulder.
I did like the way that guy went out, though, with the knife through the mouth. I thought that was pretty dope.
That was crazy. And the knife in the hand.
I was going to say, I feel like that was a little bit of an overkill, the knife through the hand and then the junk, and then through the brain. Little overkill, but definitely, again, one of the more Punisher ways of killing somebody.
Yeah. Punisher finishes the job by killing Howard Saint. He shoots him in another draw-style fashion and then straps him to a vehicle that he sends into a car dealership across the street that he's rigged with a bunch of other explosives.
Yeah, he like fashioned a Punisher logo with the mines.
I don't think that he actually did that. I think it was more the movie taking artistic license. I mean, if he did take the time to rig these cars in his insignia, that would just be so ridiculous.
Like, I want to see the test runs that he had to do before that. Like, okay, if I hit this car, see, the teat's all screwed up. We have to try again. All right, Mickey, go ahead and bring in some more cars. We got to try this shit again. Yeah, no, he didn't do that. And that was the funny thing, is like it was very late 90s, early 2000s of, if you hadn't realized you were watching a Punisher movie before, now there's a Punisher movie.
Oh, that's the Punisher logo. Ah.
I thought it was a pretty good death scene, though, for Howard Saint. With the job done, Frank Castle goes home and he's about to kill himself now that the mission's complete, but he ends up deciding not to after seeing this vision of his former wife. And he decides that he's going to spend out the rest of his days as a vigilante, killing other criminals and operating as the Punisher. That does it for the film. Overall, the movie is just so generic. It tried to be, a 70s revenge film, and it ended up being a shitty 90s action film. It was a little too silly, a little bit too tonally disparate, and lacking in action. And to that end, I give the film 2 stars.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think this film is so mediocre. It's probably 2.5 stars in my opinion, but because it's also a Punisher film, it has to get knocked down half a point just because it didn't live up to the source material. It was not a good Punisher film. So yeah, I have to agree with 2 stars.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I would give this 1.5 to 2 stars. I mean, honestly, I feel like it was better than Dolph Lundgren's version in the late 80s, early 90s, but only just better in that it actually had the Punisher symbol and that he was the Punisher. But I feel like this movie could have been way more faithful in the character, and in that would have introduced the character to way more people. And it wasn't until much, much later that he became more relatable. So yeah, I definitely agree with it. From the military correspondent, this was a terrible use of a military-esque human being. What I'll typically do with my reviews is I give my opening of whether I like the movie or not, and even my really terrible movies, I'll give the reasons why I enjoy the film. And then at the end kind of give a, hey, you should go take a look at this, or if you don't want anything to do with it, don't go anywhere near it.
I would say to Punisher fans, if you're a fan of the Punisher, don't go anywhere near this movie.
Yeah, stick with the TV show.
Yeah, the TV show did a good job of portraying the character in the right way, I think. Even though, a lot of the seasons had one too many episodes, I thought they were well done.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Ken, for joining us for this review. I think you provide some really fascinating insight. Everybody, if you have not listened yet to You Call Those Tactics, be sure to go check out that show. One of the things that surprised me was that I was such a huge fan of The Hurt Locker, the movie, and then I heard your review of it, and now I can never look at that film the same way again. Right?
Well, I take that as a huge compliment. Yeah, that is the most hated military film on Earth for military folks. And that was the reason why I chose that as my first film. It didn't even take research. Like, I could go back to the moment I saw that sitting in a theater at Fort Benning, Georgia in the late 2000s and remember everything in excruciating detail of how bad that film really was. So if I can forestall or change people's views on how good so-called this film was just because it got an Academy Award, I take that as great umbrage, and I will take that to my grave. Probably put it on my tombstone that I changed people's minds on how shitty that film was. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Like I said, I've listened to you guys since the beginning, before you guys were Dynamic Duel, when you guys were still the Battle Cast. So please keep rocking that. And like I said, guys, I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming on our show, Ken. And we'll have to have you on for like when we review Punisher Warzone as well. Or really, it doesn't have to be a military movie. We'll probably have you on for a DC film. That would be great.
Every once in a while, it'd be nice to you guys actually do a good DC film. Looking at you, Jonathan, you're not repping us very well.
I only have a specific selection. Like Batman and Robin had to tie into Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring you on board for The Dark Knight Rises, because I think that's like the last good film that DC has left.
Shut
that
up.
We haven't reviewed.
Calm down, fans. Four stick.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. All right, talk to you later, Ken.
All right, talk to you guys later.
I feel like he gave so much better of an analysis of this film than we could ever hope to give.
Yeah, it's always hard when you're reviewing a film that you don't like, but I think that Ken definitely saved this episode with his thoughtful analysis. He's a great, insightful guy, guys. If you're interested in movies or history or even military tactics, be sure to check out his show, You Call Those Tactics, which you can find on any podcasting app. We'll be linking to his show in our show notes for this episode. Let us know what you thought about the Punisher 2004 movie by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you can also find a link to our Patreon page where we offer bonus content and our very own Marvel vs. DC card game called Dynamic Duel War.
And also on dynamicduel.com is a link to our merch store where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel no prize artwork. And who are you drawing this week, Jonathan?
I'm actually going to draw Gambit because our next episode will be a duel between him and Captain Boomerang, the Flash villain from the Suicide Squad.
Right. Now, why are we pitting those two against each other? Well, they're both popular characters who throw explosive shit.
Exactly. That's it.
And they're both master thieves. So we think it'll be a fun episode. Check us out for that next week. We want to remind everyone to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing this show on social media or in person is also a big help for us.
But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, who we want to give an extra special thanks for on this episode, particularly for being our guest, and also Jace Crump, John Starosky, John Speas, Isaiah Bethune, Zachary Hepburn, and John Bechinina for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away.
True believers.